Well, welcome to Super Bowl Sunday at St. Andrews. As you can see, we at St. Andrews take the Chiefs defending their title quite seriously. Note our red vestments. Yes, decked out here. So we're totally biased. Go Chiefs. Now, I have another confession to make this service. I have watched more pro football in the last 6 months than I had in the previous 40 years. Before moving to Kansas City, I followed our symphony, not our pro football team. So I don't know if it's your infectious enthusiasm or the ethos of fandom everywhere, from the radio station to the veggie aisle at my local Hy-Vee, or driving by the stadium on my way into the church and spontaneously praying for wherever our players are in the country. But I suspect it's mainly because our Chiefs are fun and rewarding to watch. Now, it's not just Mahomes, who's a genius, but Kelsey, Hill, and my personal favorite, Edwards-Helaire. They aren't just talented, they're good guys, they care, they work hard, and they work hard together. So what a team we are cheering for today. As I prayed with this morning's reading from the Gospel according to Mark this week, I kept making Jesus and Mahomes comparisons in my head. Now, as a brand new Chiefs fan, even I can't quite go there. Comparing Mahomes to Jesus as an inspiration and encourager, yes. But comparing Mahomes to the Savior of the world, nope, full stop. But teasing out how Jesus builds up his ministry team, I can draw definite parallels between the Chiefs and Team Jesus, according to Mark this morning. So Mark's gospel is a gospel of action. The shortest of the 4 Gospels, Mark's Gospel, begins with 8 brief verses of introduction, and then wham, Jesus is suddenly launched, baptized as an adult into ministry. No baby Jesus in Mark, no choir of heavenly angels, no quivering shepherds or snoozy livestock, no eloquent, verbose prophecies about Jesus' origin story, just jumping in the deep end of serving God. Mark is a play-by-play of what Jesus did, who he was, how he lived, how he loved, and what he taught, from his baptism to his resurrection. Mark is short, sweet, and to the point, a sportcaster's dream. Now, personally, I've always been a Gospel of John fan myself. I prefer the mystery, the emphasis on Jesus' divinity, and the flowery language. But there's no mystery and flowery language in Mark. He just doesn't have time for that. Mark's Jesus is very human in a world of need. He's on the go, traveling, healing, and serving. And so are Team Jesus, his disciples. Like our Chiefs, Mark's Team Jesus is always in the game. Jesus and his disciples are again on the field this morning. The mission field, that is. Team Jesus has left the synagogue and entered the home of Simon and Andrew. There, Jesus healed Simon's feverish, bedridden mother-in-law, who's going to become SML and will be featured as a heroine in this particular sermon. So he heals SML with the disciples' support. Because let's not forget that the disciples are beside Jesus, praying with him, encouraging him. He's definitely not in that room healing SML alone. SML then joins the team and ensures that everyone present is fed and cared for, fueling more good deeds from the group in the next quarter. Because, oh yes, there's a next quarter. There's more to this game in Mark. More bodies to heal, more souls to save, and more players to recruit. Team Jesus travels throughout Galilee, in and out of synagogues and private homes and city squares, fast and furious, They serve and save others like SML in need of healing and hope in just the 10 brief verses we have from Mark chapter 1 this morning. So Mark mentions Simon and Andrew, James and John, our new friend SML, and a crowd of neighbors, all witnessing these events, but also supporting Jesus in ministry with him. The crowd lifts up those in need of healing. The disciples serve as bouncers, keeping the crowd in line and praying with Jesus. Other newly healed and transformed, like SML, jump in to serve as she has been served. So Jesus was not alone here on the mission field of first century Galilee. He didn't serve by himself. So sure, he was the MVP, but he was a superstar among stars. He needed his team. Note that Mark did not or couldn't mention every key player in his starting lineup by name. That's not because God doesn't care or because that player's ministry was unimportant. Everyone on that field was Team Jesus. He couldn't have done it without them, and he can't do it without us. So here we are today, Team Jesus. Yep, friends, that's us. We are Team Jesus now. On God's side, serving for God's glory. Are we fans of Jesus who sit on the sidelines cheering on as Jesus and others live out the faith? Or are we players in the mission field, in the game, rushing to catch his touchdown passes? Perhaps we can be both. I found an unexpected coach for Team Jesus this week, the 4th century desert Amahs, or spiritual mothers. So these were brave and resourceful women who fled Roman persecution and rigid gender roles to serve God in the desert through a life of solitary prayer. And my fellow Episcopal priest, Mary Earle, studied their lives and ministries of these obscure desert prayer warriors in The Desert Mothers, Spiritual Practices from the Women of the Wilderness. Earle notes that our desert Amahs, or spiritual mothers, trained like our chiefs and other pro athletes today. The Amahs kept strict daily schedules, meticulous diet and exercise regimens, studied the great plays, the Bible, and other spiritual readings, cared for themselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and keenly followed their star quarterback, Jesus. Earle offers us 4 training tips from her research of the Amahs to improve our performance on God's team based on their spiritual discipline. So tip number 1, train and keep training. Discipleship is a process, not a destination. Tip 2, tend to your needs, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Tip 3, keep learning and keep practicing. We're all learning together in Christ. And 4, work together and celebrate your teammates, your companions in your spiritual journey. Discipleship is a lifelong learning, Earle encourages us. It's training, and we never graduate. You keep showing up, practicing, integrating, and growing. That sound familiar? Well, it sounds like Mark's Team Jesus to me, showing up, serving, sharing, and always in play for God. You don't have to flee to a desert. You don't have to donate your net worth to charity. Train, care for yourself, practice, and work together. Advice for discipleship that rings true through the ages. And it all begins with a yes. Yes, God, I'm going to try this. I'm going to ask for help here. I may be uncomfortable and I may mess up, but I'm learning and growing and serving you here. We can do this together, right? Right. So perhaps that same prayer from your assistant rector's head also applies to our friend SML, Simon's mother-in-law. Maybe she uttered it before she joined Team Jesus. If not, we do at least know that she wasn't content remaining in bed. She could have just joined Jesus' fan club, but that wasn't enough. She got up, got in the game, and she stayed there, at least through the end of Mark chapter 1. Now, it's easy to be a fan of God and of God's work here at St. Andrews. Wow, I get it. I'm a fan too. Our ministries are vibrant and transform us and our surrounding communities. Our worship is accessible. Our ministry leaders are helpful and gifted, and our people are kind and welcoming. But we're also in the game. We have many, many opportunities to play for Team Jesus. Just check out this week's bulletin. The biggest hurdle for many of us is often the human condition. Us. It's comfortable being a fan. It's rough, hard work, keeping up the training, even harder to step up the game. But as pandemic year 2 looms on our horizon, we face another hurdle, one that is harder to overcome, in my opinion, a mental barrier created by the pandemic. The small thought, it's unsafe to go out, can too easily translate as it's unsafe to reach out or it's unsafe to try. Yes, more of us are vaccinated every day. Thank God for that. But our world as we knew it remains shut down. We can't let our hearts and will to serve remain shut down with it. Can't we wait until it's safe to gather in person or technology is not involved? No, friends, no. The mission field hasn't shut down. Our neighbors inside and outside St. Andrews need us, and we need each other. In an interview last summer, National Institutes of Mental Health psychiatrist Marilyn Poe noted that adults coping with the effects of the pandemic tended to gravitate towards one of two extremes. She defined as active copers versus passive copers. Active copers, according to Dr. Poe, tend to embrace hobbies, try new activities, or take an interest in others in the world, while passive copers tend to shut down or escape into TV binging, social media, and other addictive behaviors to avoid fear and stress. Dr. Poe notes in her clinical experience that the active copers tend to have better mental health outcomes, and to quote her, "Taking on new activities gives us internal control, when outside there may be no control. People need to feel a sense of urgency. Being able to accomplish something makes us feel competent." Now, I'm no mental health expert here, and Dr. Poe is one of many experts weighing in on the pandemic's effect upon mental health midstream. But her observation about coping in the face of stress does resonate with me. I must be a passive coper by nature, because sometimes I just want to hide and lose myself in Netflix or surfing online. Trying something new, reaching out isn't natural for me when I'm stressed. It takes work and discipline, channeling my inner desert Alma, spiritual mother, or my inner Mahomes, if you will. So did Andrew and Simon, James and John feel competent as they wrangled the crowd towards Jesus' healing touch? Did SML, Simon's newly healed mother-in-law, experience urgency at the need before her, a house full of hungry, dirty, stinky men with nowhere to sleep that night? We know from Mark's gospel that Team Jesus was not a group of passive copers. They jumped right in despite the obvious stress of being in God's presence in a world of need. At least, they weren't passive copers the way Mark portrays them, but as fellow human beings, they likely had bouts of passivity, feeling stuck and shutting down in the face of adversity, like the rest of us. This morning's Gospel of Mark challenges any of us who struggle to get in the game or feel like maybe we're not doing enough. First of all of us are in the game. We're all God's beloved who live in His world. We may be like the crowd, observing and supporting, cheering from the sidelines. We may be those in need of healing. We may be called to a time of rest and service to our own health and family right now, a journey where we give by letting others give to us. Or we may be like those key players whose names we know from Mark today, like Andrew and Simon, James and John, my new friend SML. We may be called to action, to risk, to try, and to serve now. We may actually be both, needing help as well as needing to help. Like the desert Almas, we are called to balance our own needs with service to God, and we're training, learning, and growing together through service to God in community, this community. So how can we step up our game? How can we keep bringing healing and hope to our neighbors inside and outside our parish family? We aren't just fans, friends. We are the starting lineup in the game, God's game. We're called to serve. It's our identity as Christians. We're Team Jesus. For in serving God and our neighbors together, mindful of our own needs, we find God and hope for ourselves. Game on.